Yakuza and the family begins with a young man named Yamamoto Kenji or Ken, who is attending the funeral procession of his father who died of a drug overdose. Ken looks very depressed about drug dealing, which caused his father to overdose. He really hates drugs and promises not to touch them at all. Even Ken, who was too frustrated, did not pay attention to the words of the police who greeted him. When the police officer gave a positive motivation, Ken still ignored him and chose to leave. After his father's funeral was over, Ken approached his two male friends who were waiting outside. Then the three of them left. On the way, Ken accidentally saw two men who were dealing drugs. Out of anger, he approached the dealer to pretend to buy it. At first, the dealer refused, but when he heard Ken's father's name, he wanted to sell it. When he took his bag, Ken immediately beat the man, snatched his bag, then ran away. After that, Ken and his two friends went to the dock. The three of them then opened the bag belonging to the drug dealer and took some of the money in the bag. But when his two friends began to be tempted to try drugs, Ken threw the bag into the sea. Shortly after, they went to a restaurant owned by Aiko for dinner. There, Aiko was seen serving customers while carrying her son named Tsubasa. Not long after, a group of Yakuza arrived. Ken's two friends looked impressed by the appearance of the Yakuza gang, while Ken actually felt uncomfortable with their presence. One of the Yakuza members named Nakamura was annoyed that Ken was always looking at them, but his leader named Shibasaki forbade Nakamura to make a fuss and asked him to just ignore it. Not long after, a group of thugs came to the restaurant and immediately attacked there. Then, one of the thugs wanted to shoot Shibasaki, but Ken swiftly stopped the thug so his life could be saved. The next day, several Yakuza members came to Ken's house and took him to their headquarters. Upon arrival, Ken was greeted by Shibasaki, Nakamura, and his men. Shibasaki also thanked Ken and offered him to join the Yakuza gang, but he refused because he didn't actually intend to help him, but was uncomfortable with the commotion. Before Ken left, Shibasaki gave him a business card and hoped that he would change his mind. On the way home, suddenly, his friend called him and told Ken to run away, because a group of drug dealers was chasing him. Without thinking, Ken immediately ran, and sure enough, not long after that, many men in black suits surrounded him and wanted to catch him. Ken tried to put up a lot of resistance, but because he was outnumbered, he was finally knocked unconscious by them. When he woke up, Ken was already at the headquarters of the leader of the drug dealer, and also, he saw that his two friends were already there. The leader of a drug dealer named Kato also appears. He said that he was the cause of his father's death. Then he ordered his men to torture Ken and his two friends. The three of them were asked to admit where they circulated the stolen drugs yesterday. Because they were already battered, Ken finally said that he had dumped the drugs into the sea near the pier. Hearing this, the drug dealers told Ken and his two friends to look for it in the sea. When the group of drug dealers boarded the three of them onto a boat, Kato ordered his men to search and retrieve all of their belongings. Then, one of his subordinates accidentally found a business card belonging to the Yakuza leader. Even though Ken says that he doesn't know the person, Kato still asks Shibasaki for ransom. After Shibasaki redeemed him, Ken was taken to the Yakuza headquarters, and he offered him again to join them. After that, Shibasaki asked if Ken had a destination. Hearing that question, Ken burst into tears and finally accepted the offer to join the Yakuza. A few years later, Ken seems to have changed a lot. In addition, since joining the Yakuza gang, he has become the most feared Yakuza by everyone. That night, Ken and his men were meeting Nakamura, who was having a birthday. Ken gave him a luxury watch as a gift, and after that, they celebrated with a toast. The next day, while playing golf next to a river, Shibasaki advises Ken to immediately find a life partner, so as not to end up like him without a family. In the evening, Ken visits a bar belonging to one of the Yakuza members. Unexpectedly, he meets one of the drug dealers who used to torture him. He warns Ken to be careful so that his life doesn't end up like one of the Yakuza gang named Kimura, who died at the hands of their group. He also asked Ken and his Yakuza group to leave their territory, namely the southern region. If Ken complies with his wishes, then he will give him 20% of the profits from selling his drugs. Hearing this, Ken felt insulted and immediately hit him until the man's head was dripping with blood. The man threatens that Ken has ignited the flames of war with their group. After that, Ken calms down by drinking alcohol with a woman named Yuka and his Yakuza friends. When she saw Ken's injured hand, she felt pity and took the broken glass still stuck in his hand. Instantly, Ken remembered Shibasaki's request to find a life partner. When they were going home, one of Ken's men left Ken's address to a madam to give it to Yuka. Apparently, Ken is interested in her and wants to get to know her further. Not long after, Yuka came to Ken's house, but unexpectedly, Ken actually wanted to do her. Yuka explained that her presence there was not to be a paid woman, because Madam only asked her to meet him. After that, Ken apologized and drove her home. Arriving in front of Yuka's house, Ken asked for her cell phone number. The next day at headquarters, Nakamura asks Ken why he injured one of the members of the drug dealer gang. Ken explained that he did not accept that the Yakuza gang was insulted by the man. Hearing this, Shibasaki understood and even supported his attitude. After that, Shibasaki went to Kato to apologize for what happened to Ken, but Kato did not accept and expelled the Yakuza from the south. Hearing this, the Yakuza leader immediately doused him with a glass of water. The next day, Shibasaki asked Ken to accompany him fishing by car. On the way, Ken tells about his first love named Yuka. As it turned out, Shibasaki had already guessed that he was in love because his face looked very happy, unlike usual. While they were talking, suddenly someone rode a motorcycle and fired a gun at their car. The driver, who was Ken's friend, was shot dead, while Ken suffered a gunshot wound to his back. Long story short, the driver's funeral was over. After that, a policeman went to Shibasaki and suggested that the police should handle this case so that the Yakuza members and their families can be saved. Shibasaki then visited Ken, who was being treated at the hospital. He also told Ken not to take any action, as the police had taken care of him. But Ken does not accept it. He will still avenge the death of his friend in his own way. That night, Ken immediately went into action to find the whereabouts of the drug dealers gathered. He went to a bar belonging to one of the Yakuza members. There, his friend, who is the owner of the bar, gave Ken a gun and a direction. Just as Ken was about to shoot the man, suddenly Nakamura came and stabbed the man. Seeing this, Ken was surprised. After that, Nakamura asked Ken to take care of their leader, but he refused and he was ready to take the risk of this incident. Ken also asked Nakamura to look after their leader, who he considered his father. Finally, he agreed to Ken's request, then they immediately left the place. Knowing what had happened, the drug dealer gang felt very angry. On the other hand, Ken flees to Yuka's house, but that night, he still asked her to do it with him. In the morning, Yuka doesn't see Ken's whereabouts, but she finds a pile of money that Ken left for her. After that, she watched television. How shocked she was when she saw that Ken was the perpetrator of the murder of a drug dealer gang. After Ken's arrest, the state made a new regulation, namely the revocation of the Yakuza gang's license. All Yakuza gangs were wiped out by the government, and most of them withdrew from the Yakuza. If they still join the Yakuza, then they are not allowed to run their business by the government. Finally, some of them switched professions to become fishers to make a living. 14 years later, Ken was released from prison. He is greeted by Nakamura, and then they go to the Yakuza headquarters. Arriving at the office, Ken felt strange because the headquarters was very rundown and deserted. There, Ken was welcomed by Shibasaki. Not long after, one of the members gave him a cell phone, but he refused because Ken felt he could afford to buy it himself. Then the man said that the cell phone was smuggled because Yakuza members could no longer buy cell phones like other people, because now, the government provides regulations that are detrimental to the Yakuza gang. After hearing this, Ken accepted it. In the evening, they celebrate Ken's freedom. Then he asked about the condition of the Yakuza gang that had changed drastically and why many Yakuza members had resigned. They explained that after Ken went to prison, Yakuza's life was so difficult that many members left. Hearing this, Ken felt very guilty, but they convinced him that this was not his fault. After that, Ken came to Aiko's restaurant. Ken also met one of his comrades in arms named Reiji. Then they talked to each other while having dinner. Reiji revealed that he is now married and has a very adorable child. After leaving the Yakuza, he chose to become a factory worker. But when Reiji got a message, he suddenly left. He explained that his life would be in danger if he met Ken. Seeing this, Aiko approached Ken and tried to calm him down. Not long after, Tsubasa came. Seeing Tsubasa, who is now a grown man, Ken was surprised and asked him to walk around the city while talking. On the way, Tsubasa tells that he currently works as a seller of illegal goods with his friends. Apparently, Tsubasa works with Nakamura as a drug dealer. Hearing this, Ken was shocked and planned to meet Nakamura. But before that, Ken asked if he knew Yuka. But unfortunately, Tsubasa doesn't know her, so he offers to help him find her. Tsubasa also said that his father was a member of the Yakuza named Kimura, but his father was killed by a gang of drug dealers. After spending the night talking, Ken and Tsubasa returned to their respective homes. Long story short, Ken finally found the place where Yuka worked. He also went to the place and waited for her outside until work hours were over. After 14 years, they finally met and went to the beach. There they told each other about the events they had been going through for the past 14 years. After that, Ken took Yuka home. Arriving in front of Yuka's house, Ken was asked to wait for her in the car because she would give something to him. It turned out to be the money Ken had left for her. Yuka explains that she doesn't use Ken's money at all and she asks him not to see her again. Ken, who was surprised, immediately chased after Yuka and apologized. Then Yuka says that if she stays close to Ken, then her life will be ruined, especially since she already has a 14-year-old child. Hearing this, Ken asks the whereabouts of her husband, but when Yuka says that she doesn't have a husband, Ken thinks that the child is his. Reluctantly, Yuka confirmed Ken's words, then she left him. Hearing this, he was very devastated and regretted what he had done. The next day, Ken visits Shibasaki, who is being treated at the hospital. He advised Ken to immediately leave the Yakuza, especially since he is still young, so he still has the opportunity to change. Ken then thought about starting to change the course of his life. The next day, Ken ventured to visit Yuka and her daughter. Luckily, they also accepted Ken's presence and started all over again from scratch. They are now living a normal life like a family. Every day, Ken takes Yuka to work and their daughter to school. He is also now working as a factory worker with Reiji. During recess, Ken, Reiji, and a man were talking while eating. They discuss how difficult it is to find work because of their status as former Yakuza members. For some reason, the man wanted to take a picture of Reiji and Ken together, who had been separated for 14 years. After taking the photo, Reiji asked for the photo and forbade him to upload it to social media. But the man instead uploaded a photo of the two of them along with their friendship story to social media. It turned out that his upload went viral, until Reiji and Ken were kicked out of their factory. Not only that, even Yuka was fired from her company and her daughter was expelled from her school because they were found to have a relationship with Ken. The next day, Reiji directly hit the man who had uploaded their photo at the factory. After that, Ken and Reiji left the place. Suddenly, a policeman who used to give advice to Ken at the factory came. Turns out, it was the police who had asked the government to revoke the Yakuza's license. Knowing this, Ken felt emotional and wanted to beat him, but was blocked by his assistant. On the other hand, Tsubasa was meeting with Kato at their headquarters to do some work. But when his leader mentioned his father, Tsubasa immediately felt angry and wanted to take revenge. In the evening, Kato was seen holding a meeting with the police to discuss his business. Unbeknownst to them, Tsubasa and his friends came there to attack. But apparently, Ken also knew about the meeting and had arrived there first. At that moment, Ken immediately killed them mercilessly. Arriving there, Tsubasa saw that there were already many policemen. When he breaks into the meeting room of the police and Kato, he sees that they have all been killed. Instantly, he realized that the culprit was Ken. Meanwhile, Ken is currently at the dock to calm himself down. Then Reiji came to see Ken, and unexpectedly, he stabbed him, because Reiji thought his bad luck had been Ken's doing. Ken could only apologize to Reiji. However, he still plunged the knife even deeper and killed Ken, then his body fell into the dock. After Ken's death, Tsubasa visits the pier while carrying flowers as a tribute to Ken. Not long after, Ken's daughter also came to remember his father. She asked Tsubasa if he knew her father, and then, he told her about her father. The moral that can be learned is that sometimes, the sacrifices we make actually get us into big problems. As much as possible, avoid the intention to take revenge by committing criminal acts, because there are many other ways that can be taken.